Good evening,
Namaste.
Adab.
Sat Shri Akal.
The sixth edition of MaxiMICE was a bi-city event and took place in Mumbai and Delhi. The platform put a spotlight on the needs of corporations to enhance their stakeholder participation through engagement programs. The Delhi edition saw Alok Bharadwaj of Canon speak about creating value out of stakeholder engagements.
One of the biggest value that can be created with the employees is in engagement. And that is one of the most differentiating factor that can keep employees work happily and productively in an environment, or get detached and divorced from an environment, and then you have a loss in productivity and even losing an employee. So engagement becomes key in that area, and that's a very strong belief from our side. Compensations, benefits, and all those things are one part of the element there. Capability building, learning and development for people is the second part in that puzzle, but the most important part we feel is the engagement. Similarly, when we talk of the partners and all the partners that we work with, what we have learned and what I think most of the companies experience is that besides proposition, profits, prestige becomes very important for partners to associate with. It is not just the proposition that you offer, and also not just the profits that you offer to partners to work with, but that prestige becomes very important, which again leads into that differentiated experience that a partner gets when a partner is along with the company or doing business together. The same thing I notice engaging with the customers. And in customer case, not only would they be looking for business propositions strongly, not only the service, if it's a service-oriented business, and of course the value creation that a company does with the clients, but most importantly that emotional connection in the relationship, which becomes key differentiating edge. And that's why we invest huge amount of money. All companies globally spend huge amount of money in building customer relationships. So on one hand, we are talking about employee engagement. On the other hand, we are talking about partners' prestige as a part of relationship with the partner. And on the third dimension, we are talking about customer relationships. For all of this, you extract the value out of several touch points that you do in the course of doing business. So from our angle, from my standpoint, whether it is a meeting, whether it is an incentive trip, whether it is any large-scale conventions that we do, or an exhibition that we do, in any of this, I feel these as very strong touch points which can create a feeling of wow. And there is an opportunity to creating a feeling of wow. And wow, to my mind, defies logic. So wow can beat essentially the logic. And this creation of wow in the form of employee engagement or partner relationship or customer relationship that can be extracted out of so-called what we are going to be discussing today.
The highlight of the Delhi edition was a panel discussion that looked at the trends and challenges in this sector.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bharadwaj. That was an extremely insightful session. It set the perfect tone for this evening. We have certain tricky questions, I'm hoping, in this panel discussion, but I'm sure we'll have some great solutions as well. I'd like to kickstart just taking forward some things that Dr. Bharadwaj touched upon. One thing that struck a chord was the fact that you need to create a wow experience. You need to focus on strategy rather than implementation. If I could start with that to you, Ms. Agarwal, if you could speak about the brief, the objectives. What happens before you actually meet with an agency, even as an internal process in a corporation, maybe from your experience?
What objectives do we set? Now, essentially, I think working with a network, it's very, very key. And at Microsoft, we try to follow that as best as we can. That it's important for a client to have a very set objective in mind first. Because if it's a little fuzzy in what we want, you pass that on to your partners who you're engaging with as well. And in fact, I've had the privilege of working with Sanjeev as well very closely. And I hope he'd ratify that. We try to get as sharp as possible because you pass that on. And the minute your partner in success, hopefully, understands the brief as clearly as you intend to give it, you know you're going down the right path. So I think that's essentially how we would approach, the beginnings of any project or beginnings of any engagement with a partner.
Dr. Bharadwaj, if you can qualify that from a top management perspective, I know that within the organization itself, you have to first brief your own team, that in turn briefs an agency, that in turn has to deliver an expectation that's probably, again, going to be measured by the top management. So how do you ensure that there's firstly clarity, there's obviously translation of thought right through the process?
So basically, even before a brief is given, brief is, to my mind, is for execution. So you call an agency and you give a brief to an agency, that means you want an execution. But just to take a step back and say that what is the strategy behind use of trips, incentive trips or meeting or anything for the engagement of the stakeholders? Why do it at the first place? And is there an alternative to where you're wanting to spend? So say, for instance, if we were to do an annual conference and a company has, let us say, 400 salespeople. And you're saying your purpose of doing an annual conference is because you have an important message. And communication of that message is not, it's a small part of it. But assimilation of that message and emotionally getting that message amongst 450 people so that that message is then carried forward by them in their day-to-day execution becomes a very important part of the strategy. Not the message, it's the methodology, delivery, vehicle of conveying that message. Now you say, how do we convey that message? So look at all the pieces of conveying that message. So you would say, well, we got to have a meeting. How do you want to have a meeting? What theme is going to be? In what way is that message going to begin to start 6 months before you have even planned that meeting? And in what way, therefore, the theme carries forward in getting people in, and then the experience of people even before they started to come for the meeting, till the time the meeting is over and even post-meeting, this whole exercise continues. So this is a longer thing than just a mere meeting. And therefore, it becomes important. With time, companies' culture internally begin to understand and sharpen their and hone their skills of strategizing how do we deliver that message using this vehicle of meetings or conferences. It's beyond just a brief, it's a part of the strategy in the beginning.
Sanjeev, do you think that as an agency, you're let into this strategy enough times to actually add value from what your expertise are? How involved are you with the participants? How much do you know of these people? Do you know that you have to create an event with such and such stage size, or do you know that you have to create an experience that will wow a certain set of people? If you can just...
I think today that's become a hygiene, and it's important to understand the audience to either create, as Dr. Alok said, the wow for experience for the participants, and it goes into the strategy and not just gets as an execution medium. It becomes imperative now that you understand what the target audience is. So every experience which you are trying to define, right, from choice of the destination, the experiences, the activities, the communication, is all dependent on what target audience you're choosing. And that's become a hygiene now, to be honest with you. In fact, I want to just quote one example which MICE has been taken beyond this stage. And without naming a corporate here, incident of a corporate which is trying to redefine its position because they felt there's a change of the audience or their end users happening, and they want to cut down from the the middle-aged audience to the next generation, the Generation Y. So in a matter to understand, they took MICE as a platform to roll out, or before they rolled out their strategy, they took MICE as a platform in a controlled environment called the audience and their next generation. And they use this as a test ground to now roll out their entire marketing and advertising agencies, which is probably not happening. It's gone beyond just the logistics of the experience at the project.
it has gone beyond into the defining and probably using this as a test ground, which we found was an extremely different stage that we had to kind of take up with. And I would say that the challenge was to deliver that experience and then to test it and see if it works out in the larger perspective. And the response was tremendous. We could test case that entire rollout, and I'm sure you guys will see it in the coming time. So MICE has gone beyond that, to be honest with you. And as Dr. Alok said, you can actually take advantage of it in terms of strategizing for the coming years.
Well, it seems to be a happy marriage. The agency agrees with strategy. The corporate wants to imply that as well. So let me bring in a little trouble called the procurement, which seems to be the biggest challenge for our industry. Somehow the marketing team has a beautiful brief. The agency has amazing ideas, but it gets slashed when the procurement team comes into play. There seems to be 3 requests for proposals. There seems to be a mandatory requirement for this in many corporations. How do you actually see your visions becoming realities? How do you actually create a wow experience when this budget becomes an important factor?
I believe there's one thing that will tide this situation over, not materially, but otherwise, which is a relationship, a deep relationship with the partner who you're engaging for the project that you have at hand. At Microsoft, for example, what I try to do in my own work is we develop deep relationships with a few partners, agencies, MICE agents, call them what you will, and continue and build with them. Reasons more than one. A, there's a much deeper understanding of the system, with ourselves. But B, the external network or the partners, for example, who I deal with, begin to recognize and identify with that agency very easily as a partner to their success. They don't see them as a third party who's coming and doing something, but they begin to identify with them as part of their gang. Now, when that happens, I know procurement is a necessary evil we have to live with. And as organizations who are, led by compliance, led by procurement policies, and led by, 100 other policies, it's a reality. We have to live with it. What we try to do is we try to bring procurement into our thought of why we're landing what we're doing. At least I try to do that. So at the very beginning of a project, when I conceptualize it, I involve procurement. What happens is procurement then does not become an endpoint who needs to prove a value when they get into negotiation with my chosen agency. If you include and if you collaborate, I believe procurement are actually very reasonable people. You're sure they've got a job to do. But if they understand what you want and why you want it, chances are that their belief in the project goes many notches up. It is when you exclude them from the brief, you bring in your agency, you have all the discussions with your agency, you then send them or send their proposal as a paper, faceless, to a procurement department. Of course, they will want to have their stamp all over it. So one way is to include and collaborate, and I find that works really well. They will still do what they're tasked to do, but I feel if they understand a bigger picture, they will be more willing to understand the value that drives that costing.
Dr. Bharadwaj, would you agree?
Yeah, so this is a very interesting question you asked. And the answer depends on who is answering. So if you were to do this panel with the CFOs, finance guys and procurement guys, they would have given you a very long answer with the solid grievance about how non-standard is this activity called MICE, and how it is the biggest challenge for finance and procurement guys to assign a right value which is convincing to them internally. If you were to ask that question to marketing people, then they would say that MICE, purpose of MICE, like I mentioned, very strategic in nature, etc. Whether it is difficult to do the pricing or not is a different matter, but the decision of which agency to do this execution is decided by marketing. And because they feel that they are most comfortable, and because they feel that the agency understands the language and understands the deliverable, which is non-tangible deliverables. A deliverable is not just some activity and some event, but the feeling and the delight and what the audience extracted out of it. So what she said is, to my mind, is the best way of getting best of the both situations. That keep the procurement as very much a part of the whole decision making on it.
Sanjeev, you seem to have a solution because all your clients are very long-lasting, good relationships. Adding value, I guess, is the key. But if you can just highlight to us some more of what you do successfully.
Okay, now there are 2 points on it. And I would like to certainly touch upon this animal called procurement. And pardon me if I'm saying that. And I don't blame them as well because, I totally endorse what Dr. Alok said and Ruchi said about it, that involving them beforehand. The problem that we face is they do not understand this business vertical. Having said that, and procurement coming in now, they also have a challenge in understanding what exactly is the value we are bringing to the table. So that's one part of it. Number 2 is, and I'm going back to the other fact, and I want to answer that, is I was out for a conference in Frankfurt, and where we have some experts, and they gave us an idea of saying, listen, they also, even Europe and other parts also face this same challenge of procurement coming in. But what the industry, I mean the MICE industry there and the event industry has evolved is they've actually got sessions and plans where they educate the procurement about the value creation that MICE brings in. So if that is taken care, which probably get them to have the buy-in of the intangible part of MICE, it makes a lot of difference to these guys. They are educated about it, they are engaged, and then they would understand what goes behind MICE.
The 6th edition of MaxiMICE was a multi-city affair and took place in Mumbai and Delhi. The highlight of the Mumbai leg of MaxiMICE, the annual leadership platform on successful stakeholder engagement, was the one-on-one with Sanjay Tripathi of HDFC Life.
The reason why we're here obviously is to talk about how MICE is a good tool. So can you tell me, Sanjay, highlight the role and importance of stakeholders in a high involvement category like the business you're in, insurance?
Insurance is like one of the major tools for your distribution and employee engagement, because if you look at insurance as a category, the customer trusts this company for 20 years or 30 years, because of all the products are long-term product, and customer expect the company to be there if something happens to him. And who represents the company is the distributor or like the agents or the employees of the company. So it is important for the company to understand the distributor and employees requirement and provide the engagement to a level so that he also passes on the same level of engagement to the customers. So it is important for the company to understand the distributors, understand the employees' needs, and probably communicate in a manner so that the engagement level actually goes up from time to time. Insurance is a business. Typically, if you look at agents, it's not all agents who actually deliver. The top 1,000 agent, top 100 agent, top 50 agents, MDIT agents, COT agents, they really deliver a huge amount of value to the company. So it is important to have a very high level of stakeholder engagement, at least for your top set of guys, which should go beyond the job and beyond something. So almost like it should feel like a family, so that he'll stay with you for a very long period of time.
When you create such programs for them, how do you monitor the ROI on such activities when you create, let's say, an R&R program and you announce the CEO club or the chairman's club? Have you figured out as a company to create a mechanism where you're able to measure the ROI that you're getting from an investment in these programs?
See, the ROI kind of, what we initially, when we designed the program, what we try to see is what will make that guy to aspire to come back to that position again and again and again. Because if you look at this top 10 agent or top 100 agent, the set is more like an exclusive club. New guy coming and breaking into it is pretty difficult. And you want people to aspire to get into that club. I think many companies, what they forget about is like how to make that guy successful. If I am with that guy to make him successful, how that guy will see the dream along with you, along with your sales guys. So high level of engagement is required while you roll out the program. It can't be like, so you roll out a program trip to Australia or like trip to Gold Coast and, trip to Macau and, finally whoever comes there and you take them there and give a great experience. The idea is, if it is like a range bound, let's say you said top 10 agent will go or top 100 agent will go, how will make 1,000 guys run for that 100 slots? And if it is open-ended, how will you make more people to qualify? So you have to have that engagement program and you have to plan this destination and this thing. It cannot be last minute kind of thing. It can't be based on like some other company has taken these guys, Europe. I need to take them to Hawaii this time. It can't be based on that, like I had to do one-off kind of thing. So I think what you need to really look at is how to really create that excitement and build that excitement.
So as a brand custodian, since you are continuously evolving, how do you think you can get better support or improvement from your service providers, partners? It could be an agency. So it's agency, destination, hotels, airline. So let's say if you start with the destination, since we have Hong Kong as a fairly popular meeting destination, what kind of improvements you think you would like to see from a destination to start with to help you improve your stakeholder engagement programs?
See, there are a couple of things I think when we look at the programs, first we need to look at, I think the previous panel discussion talked about how to bring down the cost. I think that is in a primary agenda for every company at the moment because businesses are not doing well and you want to do more with the same money or little money or less money. Every year the budget might be cut and you want to, still people want to go to bigger destinations. So can you really bring different elements together to bring down the cost? Like, can you really bring hotels, travel, plus some destination as a package to bring the cost together? So destination really can work for it. Destination can also pull in other destinations like that, that if you look at like the Melbourne tourism has really pulled in Gold Coast, they come as a package, they didn't come single. So similarly, like Hong Kong can really look at Macau and see that, can we really come at Hong Kong, Macau together? Also can add in something at China as a destination. So you can really create it as a hub and spoke kind of model. So that will also can work because people want to do new things. People want to do different things. Second is like, can you really keep the people interested in tech before? Like it is not that everybody want to jump from Macau's tower and like a bungee jumping from the Macau's tower. But there might be 10, it might be young gang, but there might be 100% people might be interested. So can you really get those likenesses, like what the people like slightly in advance? So I guess every place has those things to offer. Can you really build in and pay part of the package so that the delight can be created? Third is like, it is like saying that, if I do my convention 3 years in a row in Hong Kong, will the same people would love to qualify and come there? How to really create that experience? If any tourism board will get it right, I think they had really cracked it.
The 2014 edition of MaxiMICE also featured the unveiling of MaxiMICE 50, a special annual publication profiling India Inc.'s shining 50 corporations that are leading the way to success through excellence in stakeholder engagement.